Welcome to this roundtable, and we're calling it the Supporting the Heroes Behind the Heroes. This mental health symposium is generously supported by the Wayno Foundation, started by Don and Joanne Wayno, and the focus is being aware of and bringing awareness of the mental health care needs of our military service members, especially those who are deployed, the reservists, their children, their families, and then discuss with some of our experts here at the table some possible solutions. So my name's Dennis Gingrich. I'm the founding pastor of Cape Christian in Cape Coral for the last 36 years, been a pastor for 42 years. And I've got some wonderful guests here with me. And I have Greg here. Greg Cintron is a clinician. He's with the Veterans Affairs of the West Coast, here in the West Coast of Florida. And so we're happy to have him share his expertise with us as well. And we have Zakira here. Zakira Farrell is, she's an entrepreneur, she's a pre-nursing student, and she has the first-hand experience of growing up in a home with a mom who was deployed at various times, so we're going to hear from her as well. And we also have Lori Brooks. Lori is Director of School Counseling and Mental Health Services with the Lee County School District here in Southwest Florida. And so she's going to be sharing from her expertise as well. And then we have Armando Hernandez. Armando is Senior Director of the Florida Homebase Association, working with veterans, and has a lot of experience in that area too. So I'm very honored to help to moderate this time. And I'd like to start our time by basically talking about the challenge. The challenge is a first-person perspective today. I would love for you to just, Zakira, just tell us your story a little bit. How did you manage the emotions? How did you manage anxiety, maybe some depression, of being a child of a military mom when she was deployed, and those experiences of coming back home and then deployed again? Maybe tell us, were there different challenges maybe in the stages of deployment, before, during, after, and just what kind of support and services were available to you? Just tell us a bit about that story.
So in the beginning, I want to say I was probably 8 years old when I first had to move with my mom and she deployed. It was rough. I didn't want to go. I was anxious, I don't want to leave my family. I'm so used to being with family, so I don't want to leave family. It was hard to cope. I was living with my grandmother and my older sister also at the time. They were a lot of help, but it was still kind of like, this is weird, I have to get to make new friends, and then as soon as I get comfortable, I have to leave and go to a new city or a new state. So definitely anxious. I don't think I really had any depression, but just nerves, anxiety. It kind of made me act out a little bit. I don't think I had much support or services on the outside at the time, but just having my family with me, it made it a little bit better.
So sometimes you were on location in a different location, other times you were back at home, in your home community, staying with your grandmother.
So
was it different if you went or stayed?
I think it would have been different if I would have originally stayed with family, but that part was also hard because I didn't have my mom there. At the time, I was only able to see her once a year. So, that was definitely hard, but I think it kind of would have went both ways.
Mm-hmm. That's very helpful, and I think I'd like to turn to the other panelists, to the clinicians, those who were boots on the ground, working with folks. Tell us, maybe you can start it, Greg, and then we'll go to Armando, but what are the mental health services that are presently available to service members and their families and children, and then we'll also talk to Lori in regards to the school system and that support and so on. But just
Sure.
What's there? What's available?
Sure. So what's available? First of all, thank you, Zakira, for your story. Coming out here, having the courage to talk about a difficult time in your life. The services that are available, so if we're talking about active duty, there's a lot of services right on post. I think every active duty post has a family services center.
Okay.
They have chaplains. When you're in a reserve unit or a guard unit or something to that effect, you kind of lose a lot of services that are available. There's not a lot out there, but it seems like much more is showing up. I've worked for the federal government now for 20 years. Right now I work for the Sarasota Vet Center, I've worked for the Naples Vet Center, and I've worked in the Greenville Vet Center in South Carolina. Vet centers are unique because we can see family members of service members who have been deployed to any kind of combat zone. That includes reservists and whatnot. And then there's a lot more in the community with this awareness, even today, being brought out that, you know, like Zakira said when she was 8, not having a mom, having to see her once a year, there's not a whole lot that these kids can relate to other than maybe divorced families, and their situation is totally different. So having that awareness and tapping into that is really important. I think there's not enough right now that's out there to kind of handle this situation, but I think that we're getting there. And so that's, as far as I know, if you go to a VA facility, they're going to service the veteran. They have not expanded out to children quite yet. They have expanded out to family, but family units almost as a whole as far as providing resources, but not a lot for just helping children kind of go through these traumatic events in of itself.
And say a bit more, Greg, about the difference that might be available to the active military service members in active duty compared to those on reserve, and then what happens when they get deployed, the reservist gets deployed. I know that's of concern as well.
Yes, absolutely. The reservists have a lot less resources. For example, I have a client now that has been in the reserves for 18 years. She's been deployed to training, but no deployments overseas to a combat zone. Now, she would normally not be able to get any kind of services from the VA because she did not serve 24 months of consecutive duty. Now, under different circumstances that I see her, we're able to provide her services at the vet center, but she receives no care at the VA system. Otherwise, the VHA is what I should say, the Veteran Health Administration. The vet centers are a little different because we serve those who've served in a combat zone, so that includes reservists. But reservists otherwise, if they didn't serve in a combat zone, like I'm sure your mom was sent many times just for training alone, and that's for months and months and months away from their children, they may not be qualified for VA services. The combat zone kind of changes the dynamic, but it's still difficult. Most people come back from the military or from a combat zone and they're not really educated on what services are available to them. Whereas if you're active duty and you come back to a unit, those benefits are all right there. They've always been there for you right there on base. So the reservists kind of fall through the cracks quite a bit.
Okay, thank you, Greg. And I'd like to turn to you, Armando. What have you experienced? You're in the Homebase organization. You've been serving there, and you're a director. Speak to this. What do you find?
So I think a lot of times, as a public, we look to these problems to be addressed by public entities, right, or government agencies. And the truth is, the private sector could play a part here, and has been absent for a lot of this. And so, at Homebase, we believe veterans come home to communities, not programs. And so it's really important for the private sector to get involved in this. And that's what Homebase is. We're a private nonprofit organization co-founded by the Red Sox Foundation and Massachusetts General Hospital. But we've taken it upon ourselves to create a mission to heal the invisible wounds and to work through private philanthropy, through community foundations like the Wayno Group, to try and gather these resources, pull them together, and be there. And so I think a lot of times we'll, when people are looking for resources, they're going to look at the VA, they're going to look at the vet centers. What I would say is don't discount the private sector. You know, there's a lot of good work going on. Homebase focuses on veteran and family care. There's some other amazing nonprofits out there that focus on family care, like the Gary Sinise Foundation, the Semper Fi Fund. So there's other resources that can be available. And I know I can only speak to our local community here, but there's a bunch of small private nonprofits here locally that do stuff for veterans as well. So if you dig into that sector, I think that we'll start to uncover some more resources and some really passionate people who have got some innovative ideas about how to approach these problems, which I think is always welcome.
So the eligibility requirements, are they different for those that are going to connect with the governmental-based organization compared to the more private, nonprofit-based?
Yeah, definitely a difference. And I think that we have the ability to kind of set our own standards here.
Okay.
So for instance, Homebase will see any veteran of any era, regardless of discharge status. We'll see family members. We'll see those who closest support the veterans who are in our care. So for us, it's about really treating the entire entity. And we know that trauma and PTSD tends to permeate through the veteran into those closest to them. And so we think it's important to really treat the whole family. And as a private organization, we have the autonomy to do that.
Yeah. So in your perspective, the children are always eligible, the family members are always eligible for the same kind of services that the actual military service person is eligible for.
Yeah, absolutely. They're not always one for one.
Deal.
Yeah, it's not always one for one in the programming
Okay.
per se, but always an ability for programs for, we call it a 3-generational model: the veteran, the parent, the children, and of course the spouses and siblings.
And switching it over to you, Lori, obviously one of the things that children in particular are in school generally, they have access to the school, experience. Is there anything special that our local school district or other school districts are doing to maybe be alert, aware, and help significantly in the area of children of deployed service members?
The school district has always honored the military compact for students that are transferring into our district and out of our district to make sure that their access to their educational opportunities is as seamless as possible. So we work with our liaisons to make sure that happens. In the area of support and also mental health services, we serve all children. However, through this conversation brought to us by the Wayno Foundation, it really has highlighted a need that we can pay particular attention to, and our school district is committed to really unpacking for our students of deployed parents or returned parents that we are offering services more strategically to them. So we traditionally rely on parents and students to self-identify. However, we're now looking at ways that we can ensure that the message is out there for students in our schools, for their family members and caregivers, that they know that we are looking at this specific need and we can assist it with students and family that are willing to engage with us through the school district.
Wow, that's awesome. And maybe I'll just swing it back to you, Zakira. Were there helpful, supportive, maybe individual teachers or counselors, mental health people in your story that helped you or could have been more helpful in your time?
Yes, I do think that there were some that could have been more helpful. At the time when I was a child in school going through this, I wasn't aware that there was council members or counselors at my school that I could talk to. So I think that definitely being more aware of that at the time would have helped a lot. Just having someone that I could talk to that understands from firsthand. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It would have been
So
a lot of help.
I hear a common thread here that educating the educators and the helpers and the people who are serving and supporting our children and our families is probably one of the areas that we could keep improving at, of educating ourselves and I come from the faith community, and so educating the churches and the synagogues and the faith community also to be attuned and alert to the needs that there might be in our kids whose parents might be deployed and we're not aware of it, or whose parents maybe, a parent came back and maybe is struggling reintegrating in the local community and culture and family, and maybe there's an education process that's needed all the way around in so many ways. I was struck in a conversation, Armando, about you were talking about the whole Resilience program, and that you've done that with adults for a while, but integrating that with youth and students and children. Can you tell us more about that, what that whole goal is and how that works?
Sure. So we have a program called Resilient Warrior, and Resilient Warrior is a program that comes out of the Benson Henry Institute for Mind-Body Medicine. Mm-hmm. So it's basically, we talk about resiliency, we talk about mindfulness and those types of things. The Benson Henry Institute has really been practicing this stuff since the late 60s and has really brought what we call evidence-based resiliency kind of to the forefront here. And so we took, decades worth of their research and narrowed it down to a program that could be applied to a veteran returning home who needed to learn a little bit more about resiliency, a little bit more about mindfulness, a little bit more about maybe self-awareness and recognizing certain triggers and signs and symptoms and those types of things. And so we've been delivering that program now for a little over a decade at Homebase, and it's really phenomenal. Most recently, we transitioned that program into something called Resilient Family. And then about a month ago, we started rolling out a program called Resilient Youth. So really aimed at the spouses, the siblings, and then of course Resilient Youth is aimed at the children. And so that is a virtual program at the moment. We look to hopefully make it as widely available as possible. But that's just one way that Homebase and other organizations are trying to really reach the family and kind of be preventative in care, right? That's the best form of medicine, is preventative healthcare, and so we think resiliency does that, and so it's a big part of our strategy to heal the invisible wounds.
That's good. And do you have anything to add to that, Greg, in terms of?
Yes, yeah, of course. I have like a ton of things to add. So one of the things I wanted to point out is at the vet centers, we partner with like Homebase and community organizations, and I think that's important to mention because a part of the education piece that vet centers are able to do is we have an outreach specialist, and that outreach specialist will, depending on location, right, will go to the schools. I know that when I was in Naples, I used to do a lot of outreach. I would go to the schools and just do some different fun stuff on Veterans Day with the kids and education, things like that. But the point is that that outreach specialist can really tie in what's available in the community. So whoever walks into the vet center will never turn anybody away. But if they're not qualified for services, then they're only going to be seeing up to 5 sessions. In that 5 sessions, it's all about referrals at that point. And so we're going to kick back these veterans to the community. And really, I don't think obviously I'm not a spokesperson for the VA. They would definitely send somebody a lot smarter than I am. But my point is just that the VA is we're not able to service everybody. We're not able to service the veteran, family members, children, and I don't think that's the goal. But I do know that for the vet center, it's all about readjustment, and so that's really where we have to bring in the community. And I think the community are the ones that's going to be most important, actually, for the mental well-being of the client. When I'm thinking about Psychera, it'd be great if the government can step in and do X, Y, and Z. But at the end of the day, Psychera wants to be with her friends, right? She wants to be with her family. And that's where the community needs to step in and be actively involved. And I'm really thankful, especially Southwest Florida. I've never seen such a bigger community of veteran-friendly. There's a huge veteran community in Southwest Florida, and it's just exciting to be a part of, whether it's on the veteran level or servicing the veteran. I think that we're all happy and excited to be in these roles.
Mm-hmm. And so for you, you mentioned earlier just even the whole aspect of navigating the system. So as a clinician who is in direct service to those, how do you help the navigation process, or what could we all do better to help our families and those children and youth? How could we help them better navigate the system? And we'll talk a bit more about what all other kinds of things might be available here in our community.
Yes, when we're talking about government, we're talking about systems, aren't we? Many times when a client comes in, I feel like I'm kind of their inside man, so to speak, because it gets messy for the person from the outside who doesn't know the system. To learn the system in such a way that it would be beneficial to them can be sometimes very difficult. The first thing I would say to any veteran coming back from any kind of deployment would be to get connected with a local vet center, because it's almost a library of resources. And also, I mean, just obviously use the internet. But there are, at least in this area, Homebase is probably one of the largest kind of veteran-related things that are all-encompassing. There are some others that kind of specialize, and between the vet center and Homebase, I mean, we can kind of point you in the right direction. I also think it's just important that people who are watching this today becomes more intentional, you know, about our community, about our neighbors, about people in the school system, reaching out to kids who, you know, are without a parent, encouraging them, normalizing it, letting them know that this is very normal for the veteran community and the military community. That, you know, when Armando talks about the invisible wounds, you know, some of the things not mentioned is that when a service member leaves their home, you know, they have to sign over power of attorney to their spouse. And that's really sobering in a lot of ways, that they don't know if they're going to come back home again, right? So, you know, that whether Zakira at 8 years old knew whether her mom was going to come back home or not, I'm sure it impacted her. And so we really need a lot of community support, not just when we lose someone, but during that time that they're just away. And it just takes, you know, I think once we have the education out there and the intentionality, then it just comes natural after that.
Yeah, and I'd be interested to swing back to you, Zakira. You told me you just turned 21 not long ago, so you're an adult now officially, but your mom is deployed right now, correct?
Yes.
Isn't that the way I understood it?
Yes.
So is there a difference now as an adult? You're making your way through college and all of those things now, but you know, what are the challenges that we as a community could help you with now?
So now, being a little bit older, being an adult now, there's a lot of more things that I understand. So it is a little easier now, but now I have two younger sisters that are kind of going through the same thing. So now that I'm more aware that there are resources out there that can help, it makes it a lot easier for me, because now I can talk to my sisters, you know, I can be some of that support for them, make sure that they have outside support that they need. It's still difficult, as Greg was saying. You don't know if she's gonna come back. You know, you always hope and pray, even if it's not overseas, you know, even if it's just to another state, it's still difficult. But it's a lot easier now, just being older and being able to understand it a little bit better.
You have that kind of experience to be able to process it that you didn't at age 8 when it was in the beginning, certainly. But maybe from the school system's perspective, Armando, from another nonprofit in the community that's helping, what kinds of things to help our people navigate, the people that are experiencing, yes, this symposium, this time with these people that are listening might have resources, but what would you tell them that's still needed in our community? What are the things that we could do better? And we can talk about some of those organizations maybe that are helping too. Go ahead.
Well, Armando and I had a conversation earlier about the need for training for our school mental health professionals. So in schools, we have a school mental health team made up of our school counselors, our social workers, school psychologists, and our licensed mental health professionals. And a training about what deployment looks like. Also, the structures within each of our branches of the military, just to get some baseline training. In fact, some of our mental health professionals are reservists themselves, and they leave their children and their careers sometimes for up to a year. And in our off-screen conversations, I've learned a lot about the things we need to do differently in the school district to A, become aware, B, to educate, and 3, to connect. The education of our school mental health team members, and then how do we reach out to the children of our active military or our reservists that are deployed, even when they return home. Things are different. How do we help our students to know that we're there? And then also, how do we approach it with an understanding of what that might look like? And also, really the connections, because all kids come to school. We're the clearinghouse for all school-age children walk through the doors of our schools. So how can we partner more with our other agencies to ensure we have information? If a parent presents themselves to us or a student, how do we have social workers that are the connection people. How do we facilitate that so that we can point people in the right direction?
Yeah, I'll just emphasize, I think the training aspect is really important. I know part of what we do is focus on training healthcare providers as well as first responders, because oftentimes they will run into veterans. But it needs to go beyond that. It needs to go to the educators, to the religious communities. Everybody really needs to get involved in that. And I think this was highlighted most recently by the RAND Corporation that published a study capturing a number of key metrics, but one of them was the importance of cultural competence and military cultural competence in the providers who were working with the veterans. And that was actually one of the highest scoring metrics out of 33 metrics that they used that was flagged as really important. And so we know if we really want to get to this community, we have to do a little bit more on understanding where they're coming from. And then just to add to that, I think, even if you don't have a specific thing in mind as far as, how can I give back, how can I do more, I have a close mentor of mine who uses the term time, talent, and treasure, right? And so we all have at least one of those to give, right? So either your time or your talent, or if you're so fortunate to have some treasure to spare, like the great Wayno Foundation, who provides that type of resource for other people in the community who are very passionate and who are taking these types of missions on. So get involved in whatever way you can. Donate your time, donate your talents, whether that's marketing, awareness, outreach, whatever it might be, or even fundraising. And so those are all really important, and that's just an easy way to think about how you might be able to get involved.
Yeah, one of the areas that we really have not talked much about, but I'd like to just push into a little bit more, is what's available. I mean, Zacchaeus didn't really experience maybe the depth of despair that, was a full-blown depression kind of thing. There's always anxiousness and so forth, and she talked about some of that. But what's available for those of our veteran community and the families. I'm thinking of the families as they're deployed, and including those who've just returned or those who are about to be deployed. What is available in our community for maybe students that are extremely depressed and finding it really difficult to navigate life in general? How can we help? What's being done currently? Greg, do you want to maybe tackle that a little bit first?
Sure. I do know when I used to work at the Naples Vet Center, I would do, as I said earlier, I would do a lot of outreach. I worked with a group called Freedom Waters Foundation, which does a lot of boating activities and whatnot. But it was a great way to bring families on board these boats together with other families. They do a meet and greet twice a year, and they have the big Naples Princess, which is like basically a triple-decker boat. It's completely free, but they bring just everybody on that boat, from veteran service officers to people in the community serving veterans, and then just a ton of family on that boat as well. I think that's a good example of how you kind of create these communities to get the awareness that somebody's hurting, somebody's in need. I know that for reservists, they're the ones who are in the community the most, right? They're the ones who are working moms and dads in school, and they don't have those military resources. So it's really in the community and where we find a lot of those things. I know with the Naples Equestrian was another, just a really great program where kids would get to learn horseback and whatnot. And the reason why I bring these things up, because these are the people that would say, hey, Greg, I'm really worried about this little girl, or hey, Greg, I'm really worried about this guy over here. And then it's, that connection in the community to bring them on board. It's actually why I love my job, is the guy who comes in and pulls me aside and says, hey, there's this female soldier that's been in our house over the past weekend. This literally just happened to me on Friday. Who's been at her house all weekend long, and I'm afraid for her because it's Memorial Day and I don't know what she'll do. And then I call her up. I talked to her for like 2 hours. By the time we got off the phone, she was laughing. But it's just getting that connection to them to let them know that we're out here. We care about you. And there's so many people out here that actually care, and we just try to pour into as much as we can to get those services available. But it's really just about being available, right? And being willing to go past, your work hours or whatever it might be. And I know civilian and veteran alike that are in the business of serving veterans, it seems within this population, we're happy to do that. So it's just, making those connections, like what we're doing today.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Do you have anything to add, Lori or Armando?
Yeah, I would just remind everybody listening today that your primary care physician can also be somebody who can help with this, right? If you don't have any other resources, if you're not sure who to turn to, talk to your primary care physician, right? I think how we approach medicine is changing. It has changed over the past few years, and I think a lot of these healthcare providers understand, this concept of sound body, sound mind, right? You have to treat both. And so a lot of healthcare services are, they're working psychiatry and individual therapies and different things into the primary care practice. And even if they're not really built for long-term delivery of mental health care, they're often well-resourced and understand who to get people to. So at the very least, if you feel like you don't have any options or you're really struggling to find things, check in with your primary care physician.
Mm-hmm. And what have you seen in terms of, you have a system pretty much within the school system to help people that are deeply troubled and find it difficult to navigate life in general?
We do. For students that may have a short-term struggle, they can always see their school counselor for that short-term support. However, when we have more of a concern for specific mental health challenge, such as anxiety, depression, etc., that really does trigger our mental health protocols, where we talk with the student, then we talk with the parent or caregiver, and we ask for consent to screen for that. And then we can screen for symptoms of anxiety, symptoms of depression, and other areas. Based on the results of that screener, we then sit with the student, if age appropriate, and definitely the parent, guardian, or caregiver, and talk about the ways we can serve through school-based mental health, and if they would like to consent for services. And if they would prefer to have a referral to community behavioral health, we can do that. Most of the time, the goal of the parents, the student, and the district, however, is to serve that need in school. Because we don't diagnose, but we do identify factors of different mental health challenges, and we then apply evidence-based counseling practices to those identifiers. And anxiety and depression are the most common needs that we serve through school-based mental health. But we do have referral pathways, we have partnerships, and we can offer that level as well. And some parents decline our services. They would prefer to be connected directly and not have the schoolhouse involved, and that's perfectly fine. It's their right and opportunity to do so, and we still will talk with them about access to services through their provider, also through some of the service provisions they may have through other employment options, and then also some of the partnerships that we have.
That's good. Well, we've heard a bunch of different things. I think I would like to drill down just a little bit to maybe some specific resources that are available, maybe community connections. A number have been referred to. I think we had a conversation about an organization like Kids Minds Matter.
Yes.
Can you tell? I know you're knowledgeable about that connection. Could you tell us more about that?
I'd be happy to. Kids Minds Matter is an amazing partner with the school district. We have mental health navigators in our school system that are funded by Kids Minds Matter. And they help our parents with children that have layers of need. So they really have the mental health navigator kind of peels back the layers with the family and helps them navigate the systems that they need to walk through. They walk beside them for sometimes a year to 16 months until they're able to navigate that on their own. And also, Kids Minds Matter as an organization really is about access to care, collaborative partnerships, and making sure they bring together a continuum of services, and they're about education too. So we refer our parents for parenting classes. They have a variety of parenting classes. We've had them guest present for our Wellness Wednesdays for parents events. And then they also have their own Mental Health Mondays on Facebook. So a lot of information parents can access on different topics, but especially it's all related to supporting their children and access for care. They have a variety of venues parents can tap into, and then also the connection to services, and they offer through Golisano Children's Hospital then those mental health services as well.
Okay, and Armando, are you aware of others that you could let our audience know that is out there, it's available in addition to Homebase?
Sure. You know, I can speak specifically to Florida. Here in the state of Florida, every county has at least one, oftentimes multiple, what we call veteran service officers. So they are county employees who, you know, their whole job is to try and connect with the veterans who are living within their county lines and connect them to the resources that they need, whether that's delivered through that organization, the agency itself, or getting them connected. So if you're in the state of Florida, start there. And I know that, you know, in other states and in different areas that they have, sometimes they're city specific, sometimes they're regional specific, but most states have some type of program where they have employees whose sole job is to, you know, stand by and try and field those veterans as they come in and reduce the learning curve on navigating this system, as we've talked about, and how complex it can be.
That's good. Do you have any to add, Greg, from your experience?
I would just bring up the Give an Hour, kind of that whole program. It's basically for mental health clinicians in the community, and they give an hour of their time to anybody who is veteran, military related, And you can kind of look up their website and kind of see who's available in your area, but you would hope that that person, if they're willing to give an hour, that they have some resources there for you. And I'm sure there are many, many more, but that's just one that I think sometimes is overlooked, and it's a good community resource.
Well, that's helpful. So what can we do going forward? How do we, maybe you all have some ideas about how to increase connections, this process of even coming around this table, I think has already started that here in Southwest Florida, but what are some other ways that we could maybe include our church and faith communities, connecting to healthcare systems? I know there's people out there doing it, and of course there's we have some great bereavement kinds of things that are addressed toward children. I'm familiar with Valerie's House and other resources that we have here in Southwest Florida. Let's brainstorm a bit more. What will we do going forward? What could our audience do that just would really, really, really help the Zykeras and the others who are her sisters now? What can we do to help? What are some other practical ways that we could increase our connections and just make this better in Southwest Florida?
Get involved. Get involved.
Yeah.
One of the things that I share with my guys, I have a sandbox group. They're all Iraq, Afghanistan veterans. Amongst the other groups I facilitate, it's all based on mental health. But with those guys, because we're all, I'm an Iraq war vet myself. I know Armando served in Iraq as well. But I think because it's my generation, one of the things that we do in our group is we actively get involved in the lives of others. Some of the things that we have done is just put up a fence for a Vietnam vet who couldn't do it on his own. And different things, just going out in the community, and just, like I said earlier, going to the school, putting on some military gear on the kids, taking pictures, stuff like that. I have to point out that not only can the audience get involved, but people who join the service join to serve. So a lot of times they really don't do a great job of receiving services. And a lot of times you can get them in by saying that you would really help somebody else out if you do this. So with my group members, I tell them, come to group, because by you coming to group, you're supporting a group member who may not come if you don't. That might sound like a manipulation. It sounds like it as I'm saying it, but it's really not. And that's what they do. They come to serve each other. It's always about the service member next to them in battle. They say that all the time, and it's true. So as there are people out just in the audience, I'm sure many of our audience members are probably veterans themselves. I always, there's a catch-22 with being a veteran. You're either gonna pull up in your garage and hit the garage door clicker and close that garage and never leave your house, or you're going to get out and you're going to start helping other people. So I think that that's one of the things that the audience can do is, like Armando was saying, they could give it their time or their treasure or their talent. Not even sure if that was correct what I said as far as the 3 T's, but just getting involved and going out there and being intentional once again. And I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm. And do you have anything to add, Armando or Lori?
I would just add, if you're a family member of a veteran, try to be active in their healthcare. When a veteran has PTSD, or when a child has anxiety or depression, these can be conditions of avoidance, right? And navigating tough systems and interacting with people and driving into the city, those are really hard things to overcome. And I think it takes support. When I was married, I've been married now for 18 years. I had my wife when I got back home, and had I not had that support, that kind of ally in my journey to heal, I'm not sure I would have had the same outcomes, you know. So for me, I'm a big proponent of being active in your veterans' healthcare and trying to help them deal with some of those transition issues. So, you know, we're all family member. You know, before I was a veteran, I was a family member of a veteran. We all are. You know, we can all think of at least one. You know, how can we be more active in their lives, right, close to home?
Yeah, starts with each of us taking some responsibility of the people in our network of connections and families and neighborhoods,
Sure.
churches, and our acquaintances, maybe at work or wherever it might be. All of those kinds of things. I'm interested, Zakira, just as you are heading toward nursing and preparing for that in college, how has even being a part of this conversation and sharing a bit of your story, but even being a part of this conversation with some other professionals who are deeply involved in helping and serving and of concern, how is it going to change and shape you toward the way you direct your adult journey? You've already talked about your younger sisters, trying to help them.
Oh, yeah. So, excuse me. So now just being here, having this conversation, like I said, it makes me more aware. Now I know that there are people out there that are trying to make everyone else more aware so that like in school, in the community, you know, we are able to help. So now that I have this knowledge, you know, I would love to be a part of anything else, to help in any other way that I can, not only for my little sisters, but for everyone else out there. You know, you might look at someone and don't even know that they have a parent or a family member that's deployed. So just being more aware now, you know, I myself can have conversations with them and try to talk to them, you know, just let them know I understand, you know, it's going to be okay, you know, just I'm here to help if you need it. So moving forward with life, just knowing that there's more support out there, it's going to make it a lot easier, even for me in nursing.
Well, good, and it's been informative, definitely for me too, as a long-time, you know, spiritual leader in this community, to know what the resources are that are out in our Southwest Florida region and throughout this community, and in most communities there's some resources if we know where to direct people, I think is one of the possible things. And I'd love it to come back a little bit more to that. I was so intrigued when you first talked about this resilient youth and so forth. Just a bit more. How does someone connect with that? You said it's available online. Do you need to go to a local office, or are there websites or things? How do people get connected to that? Because I've discovered that in my own journey of serving and helping people, the resilience piece is such a critical part of at so many different levels of life and in our community. Maybe you could take that a bit further.
Sure. So anybody who's interested in learning about our Resilient Warrior, Resilient Family, or Resilient Youth program can visit homebase.org. In fact, you can learn about all our resiliency programs, our regional outpatient clinical programs. We have national intensive clinical programs where we fly veterans from all over the country into the Center of Excellence there at Mass General and get them about a year's worth of therapy condensed into 2 weeks. So you can find out about all those services at homebase.org. And again, the Resilient Family, Resilient Youth program comes out of the Benson Henry Institute for Mind Body Medicine, which I would encourage anybody to look up their website for a little bit more information on you know, the decades of evidence-based practices that they've been implementing.
Good. Well, that's good. That was a new one to me, and I'm so I want to check it out. I want to check it out because I can think of some folks who would definitely benefit from that kind of focus in their journeys as vets. I'm thinking of a couple of vets and find out if they're aware of it, and some children of vets that I can think of as well. Hey, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Thank you.
I have a
Feel
question.
good about it. Yeah.
I have a question for you specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it would have been helpful if we, because students helping students is so powerful, would it
Right.
have been helpful to have just a peer group for support in your school? Because that's
Definitely.
another, okay, good.
Definitely, because we're kids at the time, so we're not thinking of oh, they have a parent or away or they're going through this or going. We're just children being children. But I think, like we were talking about earlier, if everyone is aware, the students and the kids, it makes it a lot easier just to have somebody to relate to.
Sure.
So definitely those peer
Okay, good.
groups, I definitely think that'll help.
All right, it's on my list. I just wanted to
Yeah.
get your take on
Yes,
it. Because if-
definitely.
I can certainly
Yeah.
see the value of that. I
Yes.
know, like,
Definitely.
Yeah.
Valerie's house
Yes.
has the peer groups for grief support and
Yes.
the kids understanding each other,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that would be an excellent thing. Are any of you doing anything like that at any level in your organizations?
Not really, not for children.
Yeah, not for
You know,
children.
not for
Yeah. You're
children.
doing it for adults already, and you're
Sure.
seeing the
Yeah.
effectiveness of that.
Yeah,
Right.
spouses, family counseling, those kind of things. But I got to say, when I'm thinking about Zykira moving into nursing, it's interesting. She's got a certain amount of resiliency that maybe some other kids don't have. So I wouldn't be surprised if she moves into something veteran related within her nursing, or is just an advocate, wherever you're at. So yeah,
Thank you.
it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
My husband's a veteran, and if I walked into the VA and you were his nurse, I would be very happy.
Thank
Because you have a
you.
gentle way about you.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
It's true.
Yeah, and that combination, just personal story. Our middle son was working as a clinician, and was starting as in a crisis unit here locally, directly out of college after a psychology degree, and so he did that for quite a number of years. He's up in the Tampa Bay area now. But now he had combined it because he went back to school and got his RN as a nurse. So now he's a nurse in a veterans unit and a mental health hospital that has a veterans unit. And he's the
amazing.
primary nurse in that unit on his shift, working with veterans with a mental health background and a crisis unit background, but now working on the nursing side of that. And he's a great combo of, and loves it. He loves it. Loves working with the vets.
I know nurses are a key part of our model, our org structure, and how we deliver care, from case management to med management to.
Yeah.
I mean, they are the quarterbacks of healthcare, oftentimes, kind of doing a little bit of everything.
Aren't you supposed to use like baseball analogies? I feel like.
I don't know what position that would equate to.
Yeah, it's
Zykira,
Boston Red Sox, right?
what does your mom do?
As long as she's been in, the only thing I
Everything.
know that I can tell you is she's a chaplain assistant.
Okay,
So I'm
very
not,
cool.
I'm
So
not
she
sure
does
on
everything.
the specifics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know our chaplain assistants, if they were with the infantry, they went wherever the infantry went. If they were with the hospital, they went wherever the hospital. So she could be doing a jack of all trades, just helping everybody everywhere. Kind of like what a nurse does. It's ironic.
That's true.
If I may mention, I do have a little bit of mental health background of my own. I was actually, I'd probably say for 2 years, working in mental health. The first year I was at the hospital. I'm sure you heard of Baker Acts. Yes, I worked with Baker Acts for about 2 years. For the first year, it was in the hospital, and then the second year, it was in a mental health facility. So I did actually get to work with a lot of veterans and different people of different backgrounds. It was an amazing thing to see, to get that mental health background experience for myself. So I think that just being in that environment also has helped me over the past 2 years that I did do it. So yeah, I just think what you guys doing is amazing. It's amazing. It makes me happy to just know that there are people that are trying to help and make other people more aware.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
You're quite an incredible individual yourself.
That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You'll do great. Well, this time together has just been delightful, I think, in so many different ways. And the Wayno Foundation, I know, is really set on trying to help fill the gaps that we've all talked about, that there's a lot being done, but there's still more to do. And I know one of the things that the Wayno Foundation is doing is providing grants to organizations, nonprofits that are actually in this arena, or going into this arena, or wanting to expand in this arena. So I'll just remind all of our listeners and viewers that grant applications are still being accepted for another couple of months, actually, till July 31st. They're being accepted. And nonprofits can apply through the WaynoFoundation.org website under /grants, and you can find it there on the website for starting that process. And I just want to really give a big thank you to all of you who have contributed in so many ways. Zakira, thanks for sharing your story, your heart, your own experience. That's always a courageous thing to do when you share it out publicly, and you're interacting with all of us, helping us to understand better from a first-hand perspective has really added to our team here. And for you, Greg, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. Thank you for the ways that you're helping those who have been serving, and so much knowledge about as a hands-on in the trenches, first responder, so to speak, for our vets that are returning, our families of veterans, and we're so thankful for that. And Armando, for you as well, in your nonprofit-based kind of thing. You are in an arena that just helps to complete everything. We can't count on the government to do it all. And Lori, wow, my children went through the Lee County schools, and I've been a part of this community for 36 years, but I'm so thrilled to hear what all you're doing in the mental health area to address the needs of our students, and just some really powerful things. So thank you so much. So a special thanks also to the Wayno Foundation Advisory Committee that has helped so much. The chair of that is Dr. Amy Trout, and Anthony Oakes, and Jamie Simon. Your hard work in supporting the mission of Don and Joanne Wayno and the Wayno Foundation, and providing and setting up this special television production. Thank you so much for all of you for doing everything that you've needed to do to make this a special time for all of our listeners to be encouraged, to be, I hope, encouraged, and to be educated, and to find ways that you can connect and get involved and help somebody right here in your own community, our own community, together.